Many people ask me, what is a European Wilderness Society? I'm 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, 20, 15. And therefore I would like to tell you a very short story of who we are, why we are here, what is our vision. Simply saying, we are a continuation of the long-term project which has been launched almost 20 years ago to restore or recover the idea to bring back wilderness in Europe. The first step was named 10 Parks. That was a project funded by WWF, and the main objective was simply to prove that we still have the large, at least 10,000 hectares area with no intervention management. After 15 years, this first phase ended up. In that time, we were not so brave to use the name Wilderness Society or Wilderness Park, etc., because the situation was very, very different. After 15 years, we come to the point where we said, it's time to change. Let's go to the phase number 2. Let's set up European Wilderness Society with the objective, with the ambitious, to create what we call now European Wilderness Preservation System. That's a network of the wilderness areas which are not only 10,000 hectares, because we already know that it is not so common in Europe. It's still there, we still have it, but not very common. European Wilderness Society is the only 10 parks wilderness and environmental advocacy non-profit organizations in Europe, with a dedicated team of multicultural and very experienced professional team of wilderness and wildlife specialists, nature conservationists, researchers and scientists, tourism experts, marketing and business professionals, legal advisors and wilderness advocates. As you see, there is a wide spectrum of not only people but professions which are part of this organization. The mission of European Wilderness Society is to identify, designate, manage, promote European wild rivers, wild coasts, wild islands, also old-growth forests, and obviously wilderness with a capital V, W. We are dedicated to the education of the next generation of Europeans on wilderness. This is a map showing you where European Wilderness Society has offices. Multicultural team. Central office, Austria, Tamsweg. But this is a piece of wilderness which is not in Central Europe, but still in Europe, eastern part of Europe, Belarusia. The story of wilderness in Europe, I wouldn't say the starts. I would say the starts the building up very strong momentum in February 2009 when European Parliament resolutions on wilderness in Europe was passed. That was a call on European Union Commission to develop a clear definition on wilderness. So we agree what we are talking about. That definition was built up based on the IUCN category 1A and 1B. We have heard in the last day and also today that some specific countries try to develop or already developed kind of tailor-made definition of wilderness which is better fitting today's national interests and national conditions. However, we would like to encourage you to fit to the definitions which is valid, unified for all Europe. Because otherwise, we stop to understand each other in the coming years. mandate of European Environmental Agency and other relevant European bodies to map where the last wilderness areas in Europe are. That was also done. Maybe a little bit desk work, using existing available data, nothing done in field. That's a challenge for the next years for European Wilderness Society. But the list is quite long. You will see it in a minute. Undertake a study on the value and benefit of wilderness, so we can explain not only to the politicians, but specifically to the stakeholders, local people, tourists, visitors, people using the area, hunters, etc., why it is important wilderness for us as Europeans, for travel agencies, for example. Developed EU wilderness strategy concept which can be unified all over the European Union. How to combine existing, for Natura 2000, for example, system with a wilderness concept. Because when Natura 2000, we know, was created, nobody thought about the wilderness at that time. So it's not obvious, so it is obvious, sorry, that these two systems somehow clash. So we are now living in a period where these two systems somehow, we have to find a way how they combine, and there are many different ways how we can sort it out. But if we don't do that, nobody else will do. Develop the wilderness area and carefully manage rewilding areas, because that's a potential for enlargement. European wilderness preservation system is focusing not only on existing pristine areas, wild or semi-wild, but it's very much, and that's a very huge potential for rewilding areas. But that rewilding process must be done very carefully. Promote wilderness, promote value of wilderness, and launch information campaign to raise awareness about the wilderness and its significance. Promotion, spreading the information outside of professional people to the public, so they start to appreciate what we have. More than 230 representatives from different countries, from government, conservation agencies, NGOs and academic institutions in the years of 2010 and 2011 developed what was named Definition of European Wilderness and Wild Areas. Maybe more famous, maybe better known under the name Wild Europe Initiative. As you can see already here, there is not only wilderness but also the wild area suddenly pop up for obvious reason. This definition was subsequently accepted, and it is now the European Wilderness Quality Standard definition. This definition includes two parts, wilderness and wild areas. Wilderness zones meeting the European Wilderness Quality Standard and Audit System Gold or Platinum Wilderness category. Because the system includes four categories, four different labels. The top for wilderness, gold and platinum, and then the silver and bronze for wild areas. They are composed of native habitats and species and large enough for the effective ecological functioning of natural processes. They are unmodified, only slightly modified areas, and without intrusive or extractive human activity, settlement, infrastructure, or visual disturbances. This slide and the following slide basically putting the kind of line between the wilderness and wild areas. It is important to highlight that any kind of wilderness area, any kind of wild areas is encouraged during the process of assessment to make the step forward, to enlarge, to improve, to remove the extractive use so they can become the part of wilderness. So wild area definition, wilderness zone meeting the European Wilderness Quality Standard and Audit System, bronze and silver categories, include, and these are wild areas that have a high level of predominance of natural processes and natural habitats. High level of predominance, keywords. They tend to be individually smaller and more fragmented than the gold or platinum category. Although they often cover extensive tracts, the condition of their natural habitat, processes and relevant species is however often partially or substantially modified by previous human activities such as livestock herding, hunting, fishing, or collecting berries and mushrooms. Once they stop, the moment we start the discussion how this area can become the part of a European wilderness preservation system. This is a key graph. This is what makes us Europeans different from other, let's say, American continent wilderness philosophy and concept. This is what tells us how we can understand the wilderness concept in Europe. I think most of you have seen this graph already. What I would like to highlight, it's a line on the bottom, which is showing, going from the left to right, increasing level of wildness. And then in certain point you will see this line, after the period of rewilding, that's a time, that's a point where we start the discussion with the managers, either on the wild or wilderness area, and process to include that to the European Wilderness Preservation System. So wilderness, that means no human instructions. That means no hunting, no logging, no mineral collection, no mining, no deadwood collection. No intervention, not human intervention, no disease or alien species control, no restoration measures. It's a basically open-ended, undefined, natural dynamic process. We don't know what is going to happen with that area after 10, 15, 20 years. Nobody can tell us. And that's actually a challenging point in all these concepts. It's a lesson what we all can learn, including researchers and scientists. Some call this self-willed land. That's one of the best English term how to describe the wilderness. Self-willed land. Land is telling what land wants to do. This is a piece of wilderness far north, at the border between Russia and Finland, on the Finnish side. River Alanka. European Wilderness Quality Standard. That's a key subject for European Wilderness Society. Why? Because as you have seen in the previous slides, many important steps was done. Resolution, definition, mapping, value of the wilderness, etc. However, now is the time to define what that means. What means the wilderness? And this is, we believe, it's explained in the European Wilderness Quality Standard, which includes 9 principles, 54 criteria, and each criterion is divided into the indicators, altogether more than 300. This is a cookbook, book for assessment. If auditors come to the area, they go through this book and write. Spend 10, 14 days and writing and observing and taking the pictures, and they go to the office And they spent a few months writing the first draft report. Report is sent to the director. Director says yes or no, these comments, these complaints, sitting together, discussing, and then write a second version. And the outcome is this: 200 report on the wilderness, including not only history, not only detailed analysis, not only detailed SWOT process, but at the end also concrete recommendations. You will, in this case, more than 90 concrete recommendations how to improve wilderness management in this wilderness or torrent, for example. Similar one for Zacharovaný kraj in Ukraine, etc. This is a report and the list of the recommendations at the end. Recommendations at the end, when agreed, are printed in the form of a poster. And then we give it as a gift to the director to decorate his office. So he can tick, this done, this needs to be done. Just to motivate him, remind him. If he wants to be the member of European Wilderness Preservation System, that's a commitment. A commitment needs to be maintained. Sometimes commitment is maintained because of enthusiasm, like you. All of you are here because you are enthusiastic for this subject. But sometimes, because life is going up and down, even managers, directors are down, and they need this kind of momentum. They have a phone call, they have numbers to us, they have troubles, pick up the phone, asking, we come, discussing, helping. Sharing knowledge, sharing information. Kalkalpen, almost 14,000 hectares, right in Central Europe. Lifelong achievement of the director who spent almost 15 years working on that area, which has been in the previous decades intensively mined, intensively logged. The most difficult issue, hunting, in that case. European Wilderness Preservation System, what is that? It's a list of best European wilderness. In the 2016, the system includes 21 audited wilderness in 14 countries, covering more than 300,000 hectares, usually the core zone of existing protected areas. All of them get through the audit system. European Wilderness Preservation System is now focusing not only on terrestrial, typical wilderness, what we understand when we start the discussion on this subject. But this year, wild islands, and next year, wild coasts, wild rivers. Because we believe that this guidebook, this cookbook will be slightly different. How to assess, how to audit these kind of ecosystems. The European Wilderness Preservation System is the backbone of the Pen-Park Green Corridor Network. That's another initiative going throughout Europe, but this is again a nice example how these initiatives should combine together. For example, with you, beech forest. I believe that number of, maybe not all, because of size, because of impact, especially maybe in the Pyrenees. But most of them can be the part of this European Wilderness Preservation System. And therefore, it's very nice how we cooperate and combine our effort. Kalkalpen beech forest is already in a network. Uholka forest in the Ukraine is already in a network. The European preservation, there is an objective that by 2020 500,000 hectares of wilderness should be audited, verified, which meet the standard. And 1 million 10 years later. This is what it's ambitious for the coming months and year. Danube. Wet wilderness. This is a map of current wilderness preservation system, spreading from Arctic down to the south, from east to the west. Example of the list of the areas which went through the audit.
In Eastern Europe.
Many of them, most of them are in Eastern Europe. Only in Eastern Europe. Yeah. European Wilderness Register. That's a list of the areas. Max, I need help.
It was a contract by the EU. The report was finished in October 2013. It was developed by PANPARKS/Sultan and U-boat Conservation, Altera, and the Wildlife Research Institute. And it identified 522 wilderness and wild areas in those 27 countries which would meet those tough European criteria. And the amazing thing is, 284 would meet the wilderness criteria. We are talking here the 2,000 to 3,000 hectare core zone. And 238 would meet the wide area definition. And of the total of the 522, 176 on Eastern Europe. So even in Central Europe are still a lot of areas that could meet that criteria.
So thanks to this document, we know where to focus.
By the way, it's available on our website.
This is an example, and this is a list of the potential wilderness area in Eastern Europe.
This list also shows a problem that in the last 2 days most of you have raised, that the European wilderness definition was developed being supported by IUCN, because IUCN recognized that for Europe, the 1A and 1B doesn't really completely fit. And when you go through that list, you see that there's a lot of areas that are IUCN 2, IUCN 3, IUCN Category 4, but they still would meet the much stricter European wilderness definition. And the reason is very simple. IUCN seldom really verifies in the field. It's very much driven by national systems. So for example, national parks in the United Kingdom are Category 5, but they're national parks. National parks in Spain allow hunting in every national park by law, even in the core zones. So you have, even within the different categories in IUCN, differences in implementation. And that is in that report. We printed out the Eastern European list for you, but like I said, it was from 2010 to 2013, so it needs to be updated. There's a lot of inconsistencies between the European definition of wilderness and the IUCN category. Sometimes it matches nicely, but sometimes it's totally off.
Tatra National Park, category IUCN 2, 50% is basically category 1B. Yeah? And this wilderness is basically, big part of wilderness is hidden in other IUCN category systems, mostly number 2, sometimes number 4, 5. So this is a list from just relevant for Eastern Europe. And a few pictures for motivation. Potential wilderness in Wieprza, Poland. Aulanka wilderness, already in the network. Potential wilderness in Tatra National Park, Jalovecka Valley, privately owned. Oetauren wilderness, already in the system. Začarovaný kraj wilderness, already in the system, Ukraine.
UNESCO Beach Forest also.
UNESCO Beach Forest as well. Soma, Estonia, already in the, audited, already in the network. Potential Starobocianská Valley in Poland, Polish part of Tatra Mountains. Coastal area and piece of sea, Northern Sea. Potential piece of wilderness for Vorpommerische Bodenlandschaft. And this is a team in action. People has to know that auditors are in the field. They have to be readable. Activity, meetings, writings, discussions. Never-ending hiking, climbing, signing agreements, talking to people. Reading the map, hiking the mountain ridges, collecting the information, detail, overall pictures, discussions with the directors. If you want to learn more, come to us. Come and attend European Wilderness Academy Days in May 24-26, Slovakia, northern part of Slovakia, between the Low and High Tatra and the Tatra Mountains National Park. Excursions take us to the one of best wilderness areas in Slovakia, which still survive. Activity of Forest Service we have seen from the previous presentations. 3-day presentation, workshops, hiking in Slovakian wilderness. You are more than welcome. Visit our website for all information. So let's get wild, but be careful. Don't tell your wife or husband that we have ambitious to get the wildness. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Vlado. Do you have any questions linked to the society? Okay, you can discuss this later.